Hello, fourth grade. Welcome to week 24 of our Number Talk series. We are doing fractions and decimals on the number line this week. I know that for you, decimals are something you've been exposed to a little bit in third grade, and you really haven't talked about them much yet in fourth grade. It's actually coming up in the next couple weeks. But we thought this would be a great opportunity to get you thinking about just what is a decimal and how does a decimal relate to a fraction, and then how does all that relate on the number line. Remember with a decimal, if I gave you something like this, yes, some of you may say that's 0.25, but mathematically that's not 0.25, that's 25 hundredths. Remember, the 2 is in the tenths place, the 5 is in the hundredths place. It's 25 hundredths, which is the same as 1/4. Same as somebody may give you the number 0.3. That's not 0.3, that's 3/10. Okay? So just remember that as you go, and be willing to convert the decimal into a fraction. We can convert a fraction into a decimal. We're actually going to talk about that at a later time. Right now I want us to focus on, let's just focus on converting the decimal into a fraction and then letting that lay out on our number line. So if we look at our first example, it says place the numbers 1/4, 5/10, 3/8, 75 hundredths, and 7/8 in the number line. Well, I'm going to first convert my 5/10, because I know 5/10 is the same as 1/2. I'm also going to convert my 75 hundredths, which is 75 over 100, which if I write that in simplest form is the same as 3/4. Because now I can go back and look and say, okay, well, let's break this up into parts. Well, right there, I know I need to find the 1/4. I need to find the 1/2, which is the same as 5/10. I need to find the 75 hundredths, which is the same as 3/4. So that's where that fits. I go back for the 3/8. Well, if I broke this up into eighths, so there's my 3/8. And there's my 7/8. So if you go back and say, well, Mr. Harrison, I didn't put anything at the 5/8 place, well, if that bothers you, feel free to erase that. But ultimately, then it's laid out for us. Actually, I take that back. We also would probably erase the 1/8 then too, in that situation. So let's look at our next example. Our next example is place the numbers 1 and 25 hundredths. So let's think about that. 1 and 25 hundredths. So 1 and 25 over 100. It's the same as 1 and 1/4. If you think about it as a dollar amount, $1.25. Well, don't we have a dollar and then 1/4 of a dollar? Because 25 cents is 1/4 of a dollar. Then we have 1 and 1/2. Then we also have 4/10. And we also have 1 and 6/10, which looks like that. So for here, I'm actually going to do this one as an estimate. I'm not going to get really distinct with the lines and just start to have us think rationally about where these numbers go. So let's first think about what falls in the middle. Our anchor number would be 1, right? We know we're finding 1 and 1/2. We know we're finding 1 and 25 hundredths. Now, we're also finding 1 and 6/10. So isn't 6/10 a little greater than 1 1/2? So I'm going to write that above it. Sorry, I don't have enough space below. So 1 and 6/10 would go there. Okay, the 1 and 6/10 actually might even be a smidgen to the left. I might be off a little bit with that one. I apologize. That actually might even be more like right there, if we want to be more exact. Now let's see, what do we still have left to find? So we found our 1 and 25 hundredths. We found our 1 1/2. We found, oh, wait a second. So again, our anchor is between 0 and 1 is 1/2. So if I went to 4/10, wouldn't that be a little to the left of that? Here's my 4/10. If I thought about where my 5/8 falls, it would be about there. And so I think I've done everything. Now, is my 4/10 and 5/8 exactly correct? Now, because technically 4/10 would be closer to 1/2 than 5/8 is to 1/2. Because 1/8 as a decimal is 125 thousandths, because technically 1/8 as a decimal is 125 thousandths. But we'll deal with that later. Roughly, this is how it would look. So do your best with it. Please don't get frustrated, but please also be willing to convert your decimals into fractions before you put it on the number line. And if you have any questions, please ask. All right, guys? Thank you.